Hi, this is Mr. Smith, and this is day 1 of Unit 8 of US and the World. The bell ringer, which you can type the answer into Canvas chat over on the left-hand side of the screen. The bell ringer is what you know about JFK, Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, or Jimmy Carter. So any facts at all about those. And that is the same question for the journal, so look through the chat and see what other people have included as well. And for the journal, you just need to click submit. A text box will open up and you'll type in the answer to the question. 3 to 5 sentences, please proofread. And the reading is the assignment to work on today. So click on that and go to copy of the file. And this should open up. The web page is there for each of them. So you click on those, read the web page, fill in 4 significant items, and 1 interpretation for each of these web pages. And then there's the notes. And of course, you can click on this file here, and the notes page should open up. Type interpretations here and significant points on the right-hand side. Don't forget, when you're done at the end of the week, unit summary in 2 to 3 sentences. Someone asked, what were the unit's notes about? What would you tell them? And so the notes. Just today, we're going to look at John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He was young. He was youthful, beautiful wife. It's considered a fairy tale romance, although that was just on the surface. And a lot of people thought this youthful, happy family would bring about almost like a royalty or a fairy tale story, or something like King Arthur and Camelot, for instance. So often the Kennedy administration was referred to as Camelot. And they, of course, also had young children. Many of the presidents, when they're elected, their children are older, but this was an actual young family with kids. Kennedy was able to harness some of that youth and vigor into the spotlight by participating in the first televised debates on September 26, 1960. He was able to use that to his advantage, and those debates have been done most of the time since then. But utilizing the television, of course, made Kennedy look youthful and composed, while Nixon, who just got over a cold and hadn't cleanly shaved, looked pale and tired. And so it ended up working in Kennedy's favor. Richard Nixon came from a middle-class background. He served in World War II and was very anti-communist and served as Dwight Eisenhower's vice president for 8 years. And he had been in Congress roughly the same time that Kennedy had been. Kennedy would be the first Catholic president, the first Irish Catholic president. His father was a multimillionaire and businessman and ambassador to Great Britain, so he came from a little bit different background. He also served during World War II, and like I said before, served in roughly the same time in Congress. And so Kennedy promoted in his campaign the new frontier, that we needed to solve problems, we needed to tackle the challenges in the future, and America can rise to greatness. In his domestic programs, he promoted to fix the economy, give aid to the poor, and energize the space program. And during the last year of the Eisenhower administration, the reason why Kennedy mentioned fixing the economy is because there was a recession. Kennedy campaigned with the slogan, "Let's get America moving again." And so Kennedy ended up winning in an incredibly tight race. Now in this map, the colors are reversed from what they are today, but as you can see here, Kennedy won parts of the Northeast and Southeast, South Central, while Nixon concentrated in the most easterly part of the Midwest and then also the Great Plains and West Coast. But Kennedy won quite a few more states that were more populous, and so he ended up winning the election. Kennedy's inauguration included his inaugural address, where he asked for people, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So he wanted to promote service. Kennedy, of course, was motivated and wanted to keep in touch with the youth. Here he is meeting with future President Bill Clinton. With a narrow victory, though, it wasn't apparent that necessarily the people wanted him to do a lot. Without no mandate, support of the people, he lacked the leverage to force any type of proposals through Congress. So he had a lot of struggles and triumphs. Obviously, the first part of the space race was won when the Soviet Union put Sputnik in orbit, and then later on the first man, Yuri Gagarin. So it was a little bit of embarrassment. But President Kennedy challenged the country to get to the moon, and they ended up doing that eventually. And so even though the Soviets won the first couple legs of the space race. We ended up dominating afterwards. He also pushed civil rights to end discrimination against African Americans, but unfortunately, his efforts, he did not get to see the results since he was assassinated before the legislation could get through Congress. When it comes to foreign affairs, Kennedy wanted to look out for other countries that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and success of liberty. And there he's taking a dig at communism again. He promoted the Peace Corps, which is a volunteer organization that wanted to promote social and economic development and help people in other countries, and of course further our own basic reputation. And so the Peace Corps, even today, you can see is incredibly active throughout the world. So his foreign policy included a couple of global crises, and that involved Cuba. The Cuban Revolution had overthrown Batista and put in Fidel Castro, and Castro, of course, allied himself with the Soviets and communism. Eisenhower, before he left office, approved plans with the CIA to train forward Cubans, people who had left the country, in military tactics to return and invade the country and overthrow the communist leader. Kennedy accepted the plan, but the invasion failed because of a lack of air support and other variables. And so Kennedy apologized to the American people and took full blame for the Bay of Pigs. So over 1,197, almost 1,200 were captured. Two of them had been soldiers in Batista's army, so they had been part of the dictator that was there before. Once a soldier fired the first shot, and the volunteer teacher was the first Cuban casualty. 4 U.S. pilots and over 100 Cuban invaders were killed in battle. And 1,400 Cuban invaders felt betrayed by their sponsor, the United States. And then, of course, there's Berlin, which had been split. It's deep inside Soviet territory, but they gave half the city to the United States and its allies, and the other half to the Soviet Union. The Soviets demanded militaries of the West withdraw from Berlin completely, so they began completing the Berlin Wall to divide the two parts of the city in half. Kennedy, of course, feared that the Soviets were planning to take over the rest of Europe. So he asked Congress for more money for the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, and he doubled the number of men being drafted, and he signed over $200 million to construction for fallout shelters across the nation in case a nuclear war erupted. And so the United States told the people of Berlin, the United States will risk its cities to defend yours because we need freedom to protect ours. And what he says at the end here, which is in German, basically says, I am a Berliner. So he is showing his solidarity with the people of the city. And then, of course, there's the Bay of Pigs. After the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Castro became worried, and so he ended up making a deal with the Soviets to park some of their nuclear weapons 90 miles off the coast of Florida on the island of Cuba. USSR and US had their nuclear weapons armed and ready for use, and to stop the arrival of more Soviet missiles, Kennedy ordered a quarantine or a type of embargo around the islands. After 13 days, the Soviets decided to remove their missiles. The U.S. pledged not to invade Cuba again and to remove missiles from Turkey. And a hotline was added to the White House for quick communication between the two sides. And then, of course, on November 22nd, 1963, President Kennedy, being cautious, of course, and worrying his support of civil rights would lose southern states, decided to campaign in the state of Texas, specifically in the city of Dallas. People were delighted because often presidential candidates didn't go there, and so thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people went to the airport to greet him and then lined the streets. And Kennedy, of course, drove through town in an open car. Lee Harvey Oswald had been a disturbed man, never really feeling accepted anywhere in the United States. He went briefly to the Soviet Union, didn't feel accepted there, came back, and ended up targeting the president. And Governor Connolly, which is seated in front of Kennedy here in this picture, was also hit. Later on, the Warren Commission basically laid the blame at Lee Harvey Oswald. There was a lot of confusion about what went on because people just couldn't accept that a delusional man could do something like this. Plus, Lee Harvey Oswald was also executed himself basically by a nightclub owner by the name of Jack Ruby, who made the excuse, I wanted to save Jackie Kennedy all the grief of a trial. So he ended up killing Lee Harvey Oswald, leaving a lot of questions about motivation up in the air. That and the two seats, the back seat and the front seat, were not at the same level. But that's not what was reported widely. And so the path of the bullets between the two men just didn't make sense to a lot of people because everyone thought they were sitting on the same level when in fact the seats were in two different positions. And the Warren Commission, despite pointing to Lee Harvey Oswald's guilt, did little to alleviate the conspiracy theories that exist in the country.